In 1966, two extraordinary scholars, Peter Berger and Thomas Luckman, wrote a short book of seminal importance called The Social Construction of Reality. And friends, if you haven't read it, you should. Its central observation is that, quote, all societies are constructions in the face of chaos, unquote. The ongoing miracle of social order that keeps chaos at bay rests on what they call common sense knowledge. And by that, they mean the knowledge that we share with others in the normal, self-evident routines of everyday life. This everyday life is what we experience as reality, and its existence depends upon our active and perpetual construction. All right, I want you to think about traffic. Everybody understands that there are not enough police officers on planet Earth to ensure that at every single intersection, every car stops at a red light. And yet we go through intersections, and not every time that we do so, do we have to get out of the car and engage in a negotiation, or worse yet, a fight. That's because in orderly societies, we all agree that red lights have the authority to make us stop, and green lights are authorized to let us go. This common sense means that we each act on what we all know, trusting that others will too. And this is how we're not just obeying laws, we are creating order together. Our reward is to live in a world where mostly we get to where we are going and home again, and we do so safely because we can trust our common sense. No society is viable without this. Like baseball. I don't know if there are any baseball fans in the audience today, but baseball is like an everyday reality where we adventure out, but we also know that every adventure must begin and end on home base where we are safe. No society can police everything all the time, least of all a democratic society. A healthy society rests on a consensus about what is a deviation and what is normal, what's home base and what's the outfield. For example, many people love car racing, from Formula One to NASCAR. It's thrilling to witness the speed at the track, but no one wants it in their neighborhood where the kids are playing and you walk your dog. The two can coexist in the same society because we all agree that the speed at the track is a special case, an aberration from the reality of everyday life. We agree that the margin is subordinate to the center. And without that shared common sense, things fall apart. Society renews itself, and it renews itself as common sense evolves. For example, the idea of democracy itself was at one time a deviation from the norm. And that deviation ultimately became a force for renewal. Not all deviations are sources of renewal, however. Destructive or regressive deviations normally remain at the fringe, and that's where they belong. As a democratic people, we need to be able to distinguish between deviations that advance or threaten our fundamental values and aspirations. This requires trustworthy, transparent, respectful institutions of social discourse, especially when we disagree. Instead, we are saddled with the opposite. Nearly 20 years into a world dominated by an institution that operates as a chaos machine for hire, in which norm violation is actually good for business. In America, those who hold freedom of speech as a sacred right often look to Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in a 1919 dissenting opinion that became very famous. There, Holmes argued that according to the American Constitution, quote, the ultimate societal good is best reached by the free trade in ideas. The best test of the truth, he said, is the power of the thought to get itself accepted in the competition of the market of ideas, unquote, a free and fair public square. The problem is that surveillance capitalism's anti-social media is not a public square, but a private one, governed by machine operations and their economic imperatives, incapable of and disinterested in distinguishing truth from lies or renewal from destruction. The corrupt information that dominates the private square does not rise to the top of a free and fair competition of ideas. Corruption is vaulted to center stage in a rigged game where the house always wins. No democracy can survive this game.